of
They were
Stompers?
they were in the '80s too. They came out around the same time as GoBots. I don't remember Stompers. I don't know
Stompers would
which
look like
decade
those
we're talking
little
about.
cars that had foam wheels and it had little tracks, and you would just put a battery in them and they would just take off. Do you remember those?
Oh, I don't
No.
remember. I
Here,
don't remember
I'll
those.
tell you some of mine. My favorite toys.
Okay, yeah. Tell me yours.
When I started as a child, my favorite toys that I remember is I remember Stompers, which was just a battery powered four-wheel drive looking car. You would just turn it on and it would just run over stuff. And it was really tiny. It was probably the size like it fit in your hand.
That You know what I do? I think I now that you say, I think I remember a commercial. Didn't the thing just run over everything?
Yeah, it was supposed to be run over everything, and then they gave you like a track you could do it on and all that. I also
They probably had
remember
a subliminal message. They probably had a subliminal message in that to run over every one of your toys with the
yeah,
stompers.
Stompers. You just kill everything. Run over my GI Joes. Run over everything with them. I did
Yeah,
have GI Joes. GI Joes were my favorite. My favorite character in GI Joe was Destro. I liked Destro,
he was
and
cool with that shiny chrome head, wasn't he?
I think that was it. It was the shiny chrome head. I did have Star Wars. I did have. I didn't get
Yeah.
into it as much, like having all the. I did have a Millennium Falcon. I didn't have anything else. I did have the Darth Vader. I don't know what his aircraft was. Death.
Star Wars was most of my Star Wars collection, which was still small at the time. Those were, those were the only figures I had accidentally thrown out, and that's my own fault. I threw a bunch of papers in there, and when you have a mom that would come in and clean your room, sometimes she would toss some stuff. So I think,
Nothing more
I know she
cheesy
felt
though.
terrible.
Nothing more cheesy than those Star Wars with the lightsabers would slide out of their forearm into their hand. It was
Yeah,
like a little.
it's just it's amazing. Yeah, sir, yeah, those were cheesy. They became so expensive though in aftermarket, especially if you kept them. I actually had uh, a second cousin. They were she was on the show Toy Hunters, and actually she was on an episode of Toy Hunters, and I mean, we could pull the curtain back and just tell the people since it ain't gonna matter anyways. That obviously the deal was pre-made on those TV shows, so they already had the deal made. So basically, when they went on Toy Hunters, uh, there was no negotiating. They already knew what they were going to do. They just pretend negotiated, and they already had the figure in mind, and they, crafted the episode around these vintage Star Wars, the first series, and everything. And she saved all the doubles because she felt my two cousins, her sons, if they broke one, she'd have another one. Well, my cousins were much like me. Were really good with the toys, collecting them, keeping them in good shape. They never needed to, so she ended up basically with like a gold mine later on in life. And this was a few years back on that Toy Hunters, TV series. Yeah, she made a good, pretty penny out of those original Star Wars. But um, the Star Wars are still being made today. They keep improving the technology and all these things. So it's hard for a lot when I became, collecting toys a little bit, for the first time in the middle of the 90s, they brought back all the Star Wars, but everybody and their brother thought, oh, hey, I'm going to get these and save them and they'll be worth something. And a lot of those really aren't. So they fooled everybody. They made a ton of money. They still do. Recycling all these characters over and over again. They look great. They look a lot better, 1,000 times better than those pieces of crap that you're talking about too. But
Hey,
it's just
hey, calm
amazing
down, calm down. That was
how
my
much money
childhood going on
they
there,
still
buddy.
make.
Do you
Yeah.
remember?
Well, I want to take you away from who else you were talking about
Well,
as your next
none of
toy.
them can fit in there though. That's the thing. You could fit them in these little. Like now they have their legs bend, their knees bend, their arms swivel. Back then their arms were just straight, their legs were straight. None of them could fit into the cars and stuff that you had. RTD2 and
That's what
C3PO
made
were
the
probably my best.
that's what made the GI Joe so cool, though. They had articulation like other figures. Their arms would swivel, their knees would bend. You could put them in those jeeps and tanks and all those army, vehicles, and it made for a cooler setup when you set up Cobra against GI Joe, and I
So
think a lot of the other figures had to follow suit once they once one toy company is making their toys cooler and more posable and everything, and the next company is going to say, hey, we can't get away with putting out this garbage anymore. We're going to have to do it. The better figures.
So going into my entourage of toys, then I got into Thundercats.
Oh, yes.
Thundercats were my favorite. And then I got into G.I. Joe, which we watched the G.I. Joe cartoon like every day or every Wednesday or whatever. Really got into that thing. And
that was a great cartoon.
That was probably the one I collected the most. Collected the most was G.I. Joe. And I'll tell you a horror story that happened to me as a kid.
Oh, no.
So I had a bunch of G.I. Joe figures, and I got sick one day, and I was homesick, and I was playing with them in my room, but then I fell asleep. Well, my brother and his friend came in my room, took my G.I. Joe figures, went outside without me knowing, and hacked them up with a machete.
Jeez.
I didn't know that they were gone. I just thought my toys were missing, so I was like, I didn't know. So I was outside playing with my other toys, and as I looked in the dirt, I could see pieces of like legs and arms and pieces of my G.I. Joes laying on the ground. And I remember I was pissed at him, and he laughed, and he told me, he's basically like the asshole from Christmas Story, and the kid, the one that they beat up.
I would say so.
So that I was mad at him, and I don't know, my parents just didn't give a shit, but he chopped up all my toys. They tied them to trees and hacked them with machetes and shot them with BB guns.
And they're not serial killers right now?
No. So then the other thing that was funny is I remember for my birthday.
That's horrific. That sounds like something you would tell to a therapist in a therapy session.
I got a hang glider, and it was one of those hang gliders for Destro, or not Destro, for Cobra Commander. You would put them in, and it was like blue and black camouflage, and you would throw it, and it was made out of styrofoam, and it was, the commercial showed it swooping down, and all this shit's going on. They're shooting stuff out of it and everything. So I remember I got that for my birthday, and the next day I threw it in the air, and my brother's friend pulled out his pellet gun and shot a hole through the frickin' wing. And that was it. I couldn't play with that anymore. It was broken.
Well, those toys aren't cheap. If I was the father, I'd be like, I'd slap the shit out of either your brother or fucking make that kid's parents pay for the fucking thing. You're ruining all the toys. That shit ain't fucking cheap, especially nowadays.
That's why I'm all messed up.
The kids
MC.
Yeah.
This is why you're here. This is actually not a podcast I publish. This is just therapy.
I personally just felt bad when I used to make these my own versions of Mad magazines or something. My brother tore that apart one time, and even something I drew and created and stuff. If it would have ruined any of my toys, I would have been insanely pissed off.
Well, there you go. There's
my niece one time accidentally ripped a comic book in half, and I still gave her shit even up until recently, even before she replaced it years later. Just because so I wouldn't keep busting her chops about it. So yeah, to hear that stories, I feel bad for you.
Yeah.
Not that you're probably looking for any sympathy, but that's a terrible thing to picture a child having to go through. Who's buying the shit? I'd have whipped his ass.
So be in my life.
Chores to fucking make up for this. Yeah. They're probably just thinking that's kids being kids. Oh, the brother's gonna fucking beat up his younger brother. He's gonna ruin his shit. That is what it is.
Hack his shit up with a machete.
Back
in the day, you could buy machetes. Just in case people were wondering where we got them from, you could go and legally buy Chinese throwing stars, machetes, and throwing knives at a place called the Knife Shop in the mall. And you could just go and purchase these things, and they would hand them over to you, even though you're like 15, 14 years old. They would give them to you and you'd take them home.
Yeah, what are you going to do with now? Now you'd be like, what are you going to do with that machete, son?
Hack up my brother's toys.
You're reporting this kid to the fucking murder hotline saying he's got a machete. And I think you'd probably lock the machetes up like you would the spray paint, right?
No.
You need an ID to buy a machete or a firecracker.
You want to know what he did with my Star Wars figures?
You're going to say blue.
Do you want to know
Blew
what we
him
did
up with firecrackers.
what he did to my Star Wars figures?
What did he do?
They set him up in like a scenario. Well, there's two things. He did this one with my Star Wars figures. He set them up like they were in like a battle scene, and then we took, he took spray cans and a lighter and torched them until they melted.
Oh, jeez.
Then the G.I. Joe situation, remember the Jeep? It was Duke's Jeep and all that shit. We put firecrackers. Well, he did. Again, this is all his scenario. I was a young kid. He put firecrackers around it, and then we ran gasoline, like a trail of it, and we lit it on fire, and the gas would go, and it would hit the firecrackers and start popping all around them and burning this shit up. So that's how we did with our toys. That's why I don't have any collectibles. I have none of this stuff left. It's gone. So you're lucky you kept this stuff, but
it sounds
horrific.
Sounds like to me if your brother's listening, he owes you a few hundred. He owes you a little bit more than probably hundreds of dollars in restitution.
I'm taking inventory right
probably
now.
Thousands now.
Taking inventory.
Depending on how many he destroyed.
All my G.I. Joes and Star Wars But one of the things we used to do is with my buddies across the street, we used to make movies with this stuff because they had tons of this stuff. They had G.I. Joes and Star Wars, and we would make like stop action movies with this stuff. It was pretty cool. But we were like way into the G.I. Joe cartoon. That was like our thing. We watched that religiously on, and we would record it on a VHS tape and then watch it later. And so looking at it, I don't know if you have anything to share about your Christmas memories of toys. Anything?
We went from talking about Black Friday to our favorite toys of a child. So we kind of
we're gonna get into why we're talking about this, because if you're not gonna share I was thinking, go ahead.
No, yeah, I think I covered most of my favorite ones. You know, it's just it does, in all seriousness, it does coincide with the holidays because of this. You know, what you're shopping for is you're shopping for. You know, a lot of times the parents are shopping to get their good deals on the toys for these kids for Christmas. And, you know, as a kid, when I was a kid, a lot of times my earliest memories, you know, outside of those certain hard to find certain action figures from those lines I discussed, you know, it just went into, you know, the video game age was starting. So I have a lot of good memories just of Christmas times. You'd get a new video game, you'd play it on either Atari or Nintendo it became, and, you know, and just playing for hours with, you know, brother and friends. And just it became a lot of fun there, finding, you know, which one you're going to get and stuff. Because the thing with video games became a lot of choices, you know, to have. And I'm happy on the original Nintendo I kept, and I have a few of those favorite games shaped too, because kind of treated my favorite ones as kind of like those classic figures you hold on to, or comic books you hold on to, and you kind of hold on to that good memories that are associated with. And I think that's really kind of a lot of times for not getting rid of it, the sentimental part of those good memories and stuff. And, you know, especially when, you know, you lose family members and stuff, that you remember those good times with them. A lot of that stuff, you remember those good memories, and that brings back a lot of good stuff. So, yeah, a lot of that times, you know, those early toy lines, or the, you know, it became eventually transition those video games that created a nice atmosphere of, you know, anticipation, you know, to tie it back to the shopping portion of it. You know, a lot of that stuff was hard to find. I remember a lot of times being shocked as a kid that my either older brother had found something, or my mom or dad had found something that I could never find in a store. And, you know, it just, now when you could just order something online, it kind of defeats a lot of the hunt that we used to have to go through, or, you know, family members had to go through when they were buying stuff for us. And there's nothing kind of like that feeling. You know, you find something that you never thought you would see in a store, and get a gift to a kid. It's you know, and then you see their face during the holidays. You know, that was pretty special and good times, you know.
Just remember that. Don't put yourself in that position and make any promises of shit you can't find, because it'll be like that movie Jingle All the Way. and you're not going to become a superhero and be on a float, and then all of a sudden get a Turbo Man doll. But to go into the Black Friday, the hottest items, I'm looking at this list